Hello everyone and welcome to 2024. We are actually already into February, but still, Happy New Year. It's good to be back. I thought for the start of the year, let's start with a nice, easy, low stress, non-controversial topic. Let's talk about salaries. It has been a while, I will admit. It's been over a month since I filmed anything. I did Vlogmas for those that watch my channel regularly, and that kind of burnt me out a little bit. Doing a full video every day, editing it, and getting it uploaded every single day was too much. It was way too much. It was good fun, but yeah, that really kind of killed making videos for me for a while. Plus, I had no events in January. Don't often have events in January. So anyway, we are now here in February, and I feel like I've recovered. I'm ready to make some more videos. And I thought I'd start with a video that I've had on my to-do list for quite a long time. I've wanted to talk about salaries and salary transparency for quite a while. Last year, or maybe even the year before, I did a series on TikTok and on my YouTube Shorts where I talked about what I earn across my career, what I've earned from when I started in university all the way through till now. And we are going to go through that in this video as well, because I think it was very valuable information. And the reason why I think that is because I'm a big advocate for salary transparency. That's something that in tech we don't get a lot of. You'll be lucky if a job listing lists the salary range, and that's about as close as you're going to get to salary transparency. Companies do not like to give out salary information. And that's because for them it's beneficial. You can't complain that someone else is earning more or less than you if you don't know that they are. You don't know. You can't complain that you're, lower down on the list for pay rises if you don't know. Yes, it's a really weird situation where we have this kind of taboo subject where, oh, you shouldn't talk about how much money you earn. That's not right. The only people that benefits is the companies. As an individual, knowing what other people earn can help set your own worth. You can understand what you should be earning. You can understand the average across industries. That employers have that information. They employ hundreds of thousands of people. They know how much the average is. You don't have that information. So I'm a big advocate for salary transparency. And I really think more people should be talking about this in tech. More people should be acknowledging what they earn. It's not just in general in terms of knowing your own worth, but of course also for weeding out things like pay discrepancies between different marginalized groups. That's really important as well. It's all well and good for a company to say, oh, we pay fairly and equally across different groups, but without the actual statistics and information, how do you know that? You don't. So one thing, if you're going to stop here and not bother watching the rest of the video, completely understand, but please take away the fact that salary transparency is a good thing for employees, and you really should drive forward and be more open about these sorts of things. Talk to your friends about how much you earn. Encourage them to do the same. Talk to fellow employees as well, and people that you work with. It's very valuable information for everyone. And there are websites out there that are kind of trying to aggregate this information, and there are resources available now, which is obviously a huge step forward to make sure that you are getting what you deserve pay-wise. But it can only get more. You can only get better with more information. Now, the other reason why I did this series, and the other reason why I wanted to do this video, is to highlight the differences in tech salaries between the US and the UK or Europe in general. I think we see a lot on social media about how, joining tech, you can earn so much money, $200,000, up to like $500,000, all these massive salaries. And that is true. those salaries do exist, but we have to consider the fact that most of those salaries exist in the US and the US only, and even then it's if you are living in incredibly expensive areas like San Francisco. It's very important to take that into consideration as well. Just because you have a very high salary doesn't mean that you have a lot of available income after your expenses. So it can be very easy to get wrapped up in this idea that, oh, I'm going to join tech and I'm going to be making $250,000 a year next year. It's a great goal to have, but it's probably a little too ambitious, especially if you're brand new to tech and especially if you don't live in the US. So I thought, in the spirit of pay transparency and also in the spirit of talking about what you can actually earn, what are real figures for here in the UK, I'd go through my job history. For those that don't know, I've been in tech now for well over 10 years, arguably more like 20 years, depending on where you want to draw the line of starting. But I've definitely been in full-time paid work for about 12, 13 years now. And I've had a range of jobs, from working freelance to being a full stack developer to being an Android app developer was kind of my main role throughout that time. Back-end Java developer. I've managed teams. I've been a senior. More recently, I moved into developer relations. I became a developer advocate, and I'm now a developer relations manager. So I've had this kind of quite wide range of experiences through tech, and that's kind of why I want to share with you my kind of pathway. And I also want to highlight the fact that not always progression is linear. That's another thing that's really important, I think. Sometimes the right thing to do is to go for a non-linear route, and you'll actually see that probably in the thumbnail. I have this graph that I made up, which we'll have a look at the end as well, that shows my salary progression throughout my career. So I think it's now time to kind of have a bit of story time, and let's get into my sort of salary progression. And I think the place to naturally start would be for me at university. I did computer science at university with computer game design. I quite early on realized that computer game design was not for me, and that I was going to become a more traditional software developer. And then I ended up kind of leaning into app development because it was the new exciting thing for mobile devices. And during my second year of university, I, as many university students, realized I didn't really have enough money and I'd quite like some more money. So I started freelancing in my spare time. And at that time, I think I was charging about £15 an hour. That would have been about 13, 14 years ago now. And yeah, you know, I was very much considered myself to be very junior. I had a general knowledge of computer science by that point, and I had a general knowledge of programming by that point. Lots of self-taught stuff from before going to university as well. So, you know, I thought £15 an hour is a reasonable. It was, you know, well above the minimum wage, way more than I was going to earn working in a bar or something else that you might do as a student job. So I kind of took full stack jobs on, doing lots of things like WordPress websites and all that sort of stuff. And that's where I really started focusing on Android, and it went quite well for me. So I would say, working kind of half time, I was earning about £15,000 a year. So, you know, we could extend that up to 30,000 if I was working full time. And that worked very well through my second year of university, and just kept going with that really into the third year. In the third year, I'd kind of built up a bit more of a client base. I had a bit more knowledge around working in the real world and actually getting work done. So I progressed a little bit and I bumped my own pay up to £20 an hour. So that kind of extended how much I was earning up to about £40,000 a year if I was working full time. I wasn't, but that would be kind of the equivalent. And it's kind of obviously important to note that when you are freelancing, there's lots of benefits and lots of negatives to that. On the one side, freelancing gives you the freedom to work when you want to work, gives you the freedom to control your own hours, to be your own boss. But in reality, you find yourself kind of having lots of bosses. Every client you take on is your boss. They're the ones that are going to pay you in the end of the day. And you've got lots of other things that you have to do as a freelancer, which you don't really have to do otherwise. Here in the UK, if you work for a company, they handle all your taxes for you. They file, they take the tax every month out of your paycheck before you see it, and that's all kind of automated from your perspective. You, as a freelancer, you don't get that. You have to file your own taxes, you have to keep accountant records, you have to do all the administrative work that comes with just working in general, writing up contracts, all that sort of stuff. It's a lot of extra work that you're not getting paid for. So it's always worth keeping in mind. And for me, freelancing kicked off my career, but it was definitely a difficult way to go about it. But I came to the end of my third year of university, and I was actually approached by an Australian company who was using one of my open source projects that I was working on, my Linux on Android project, for those that know it, and they wanted to integrate it into a tablet that they were building. So they basically put me on retainer at £3,000 a month. And that retainer meant that I was there to help them do this, and that I also wouldn't there was like a non-compete agreement. So I wouldn't compete with anyone else making a tablet and wouldn't do stuff like that on, with other companies. So that was fine by me because I wasn't doing that with any other companies. It was kind of completely out of the blue. It was a big shock. It was very exciting at the time. And what was really great about it was that it wasn't a full-time job. I was on retainer, and some months, yes, I was working probably 40 hours a week for them. Other months, I was doing nothing for them at all. So it did mean that I was able to continue freelancing on the side. This was also just kind of a contract, and I was still working as a freelancing for them. So I wasn't being employed by a UK company. And what that meant is, I think overall, I made about £56,000 a year in the first year leaving university, which is considerably more than any kind of junior out of university position that you could get with a company. So you can probably see why I was very kind of keen to keep doing this and very keen to work in this manner. It afforded me a lot more financial freedom than I would have otherwise had. But again, the issues still were there that, I had to do my own taxes, I had to do my own accountancy, I had to do all those sorts of things. If I was sick, I didn't get sick pay. If I wanted to go on holiday, I would have to essentially not work. And it's fair to say that during that time, I really didn't go on holiday. So I was contracted with them for about 3 years. I didn't really go on holiday. Really did work every hour under the sun. So, to say I was earning £56,000, it's a little unfair, really, and it should be lowered if you take into consideration that I was definitely doing more than 40 hours a week. And that definitely got me into a bit of a pit and a bit of a spiral, because I just kind of felt that like every hour of the day should be spent working and earning money. And then, because about after 3 years or so, that contracting came to an end. The company the tablet didn't go as well as they were expecting, and I did work with them for a while after that kind of project closed on a few other things, but in the end they decided not to renew the contract. And so I did go back to full-time freelancing. And at this point, I had quite a lot of experience, I felt, as a freelancer, particularly in the mobile space, Android apps and that sort of thing. So I increased my hourly rate to about £35 per hour. Now, I at the time thought that was quite expensive, but in hindsight, it was still a lot cheaper than kind of the going market rate for a freelancing developer. And it highlighted the fact that, salary transparency and pay transparency would have been something I would have really benefited from back then, because I didn't know my worth. The only way I really could figure out my worth is to experiment, is to increase my pay, my hourly, and see if clients would still pay it. So I landed on £35 per hour, and I would say during that kind of next year, it must have been about £70,000 that I earned, which is great. Obviously, again, a really incredibly good salary, if you could call it a salary. But realistically, again, none of the benefits of working for a company, all the hassles of being a freelancer. And then this was came to a point really where I realized that I wasn't happy freelancing. I wasn't happy freelancing at all. It was actually making me quite depressed. I didn't enjoy all the other bits that come with being a freelancer, the admin work, the accountancy. Probably already given that impression, but I really didn't enjoy it. And it made me realize that I couldn't keep doing it. It doesn't matter if I was earning lots of money, if it was destroying my health, if it meant I couldn't go on holiday because I was so obsessed with making sure every hour was billable. So I started looking for a new job, and decided it was time to get a real job and work for a company. And this is actually where it kind of got quite difficult for me. I didn't have any job experience, not that a lot of companies would recognize. A lot of the work that I'd done had been under NDAs, and I couldn't show the case. I didn't have many personal projects or a portfolio really to show. So I realized I didn't really have a lot to show for those many, many years of freelancing, which was a real shame and a problem. Now, thankfully, I did find a company that was literally about 30 seconds down the road from where I was living that was willing to give me a chance. And after lots of conversations, we agreed that I would join, and the salary was 38,000. So I took a substantial pay cut from my freelancing time. But this is where I'm talking about non-linear progression. It was a significant increase in my mental health, my well-being. I had 28 days paid time off a year, sick leave, bonus scheme, lots of extras that really helped relieve stress. I could go to work, do my day job, and then go home and enjoy my personal time in the evenings and the weekends. That was something I just never had before. So for me, it was the right step to take. I'd say they took a risk on me because I hadn't got that kind of proof, but it worked out very well. I was working with them for about a year, maybe a year and a half, when I was then approached actually by someone I used to work with a lot when I was freelancing. They had quite a good idea for a startup, and it just kind of started kicking things off to make that happen. They had the money to get things going, they had the idea, they had design stuff being drawn up, and they needed a CTO. So they approached me and asked if I'd be interested in doing that. The salary was going to be £40,000, so a slightly increase in the salary, but with a 20% share in the company. And at that time, I think I was still kind of young enough to be able to take that kind of a risk. Didn't have any children, didn't have really any dependency. And I thought, let's give it a go. Let's see if we can make this work. Because obviously, there was a chance it would pay off. And I really did believe in the product as well. I thought it was very interesting. So I was with them for about 6 months when unfortunately some issues arose, which meant that the company ended up having to close. And that was the end of that startup, really. And once again, I was back on the job market. Funny enough, though, when I started looking for a job, I found that the company that I had been working for hadn't actually been able to find a replacement for me in those 6 months. The job was still open. So I took my old job back. They agreed to increase my salary to the 40,000, so I got a bit of a pay rise. They did arguably say that they were planning to do that anyway, but I then left after a year. And we were kind of back to where we were, and that really worked very well for quite some time. So I was with this company for a few years, and then COVID hit, and my mental health took another big tank. I definitely struggled for quite a long time, and it was a big hit on me. I must say that the company I was with was very supportive. They did everything they could to help make sure that I was okay and give me the time that I needed. But things got stagnant. I was definitely in a position where I'd been with the company for a long enough time. I hadn't really recognized it until I'd started therapy and stuff, but I was bored. The job was stagnating. COVID was tough, and I needed a change. So this is when I started looking for a new job, and I actually discovered developer advocacy. I realized it was exactly the kind of thing that I wanted to be doing. And so I actually applied and got the position as an Android developer advocate for Huawei, which was a £68,000 job, which at the time was amazing to me after being on 40,000. It was a huge salary increase. But there was a slight problem. It required me to work in the office in London, which meant we had to move to London. It was impractical for me to commute. I was living about 2.5 hours away from London. I wasn't going to spend 5 hours a day commuting. So we moved down to London. And again, a really great experience, but by moving to London, my expenses were significantly higher. My rent trebled from what I was paying. And so suddenly, actually, that massive increase probably meant that I ended up with less disposable income at the end of the month than I previously had. My expenses were a lot higher, and we didn't really consider that as much as we should have. So I was with them for about a year. I was promoted to senior during the year to lead the team. However, they weren't going to increase the pay band until the completion of a full year. So I would have got 75,000 when the year was completed. But I decided that it was time to look elsewhere. I really enjoyed the work, but working there specifically just wasn't for me. Again, also, I started to realize that actually I think I was being a little bit underpaid for what I was doing. Looking for what information I could find, it was clear that yes, actually, I could be earning a lot more than I was. So, nearing to the full year completion, I decided to find a new job and move to the company that I am with now currently. And that was another big jump for me. I got a base salary of £100,000, and that also then had a package of 15% bonus and an LTI, which meant that roughly the yearly package was about 120,000. So this was a big jump again, and it definitely made living in London more achievable. But we also decided to move out of London. The job was a fully remote position, so there was no need to stay in London. So again, it meant that my disposable income was increased significantly. And then I would say about 6 months into that job, maybe even less, I actually took a horizontal move from being a senior Android developer advocate to a developer relations manager. So the salary bands were exactly the same. It was literally just a horizontal move from being an IC to a manager. So there was no pay change, but it was a different job with different responsibilities. And it was kind of a new challenge and very exciting. So I was with them, and a full year we had pay kind of evaluations, and there was a small pay rise of 2.7%, which meant my base salary moved up to £102,700. Plus a new LTI did kick in as well, which meant that my total rough package was about £130,000. And that's where I am now. We are in February now. Come April, there'll be another round of pay evaluation, and we'll see where we get to. But that is kind of a very quick overview of my salary progression. And hopefully from this graph now that you can see that it's had lots of ups and downs. Some bits have been very flat, some bits I've taken a pay cut, as we talked about. But overall, it's been about not just the pay for me. Through the help of salary transparency, through the help of gaining this information from different people, I've been able to further my career and been able to make sure that I am paid what I'm worth. But it's also not just been about that. You know, I've taken significant pay cuts to aid my mental health, to aid my work-life balance, and that's also incredibly important. Still, I hope that this information can be very useful to you. I hope that it can give you an insight into salaries here in the UK, and maybe inspires you to look at different types of working and different types of progression. I'll end this video, I think, by saying salary and transparency really is vital. If there's one thing you take away from this, please be more open with each other about your salary. Be more open about each other, about your worth and what can be achieved. Because if we don't do that, then people will continue to be underpaid and people's time will be abused, because why not? Because they can, because that's capitalism. So I do think we're going to end it there. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Kind of, like I say, a bit of a different video to start the year on. A bit more of me just ranting, really. Hopefully it's enjoyable. Do comment down below if you've enjoyed this. And of course, please do hit that like button and do subscribe. We are, I think at time of recording, about 380 subscribers. I really want to make this year the year we hit that 1,000 subscriber count, which will make a big difference to the channel, and we can start growing it further. So please do subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.